Morning. Welcome to Death Church Radio, Death Church Radio Podcast, and the Sean C. Stuckey Show on Facebook, BitChute, YouTube, Trovo, pretty much anywhere. And for my name is Pastor Sean Stuckey. I had decided a while ago that I was going to quit making videos, but I got convicted by the Holy Spirit to come back and do this. And I figured just because of time-wise and all the things that I have going on right now in my life, that I'm going to make the show as easy as possible. So what we're going to be doing is I'm going to go back to an old concept that I used to do about 5 years ago when originally doing Death Church Radio, where it's a news show mixed in with a Bible study. So what we're going to do is we got some topics to go over, being that I used to actually be the head of a political talk show for about 4 years, which has been defunct for about 3 now, maybe 3 to 4 years at this point. But anyways, so thank you guys for tuning in. Thank you for listening to Death Church Radio Podcast. Once again, this is Pastor Sean Stuckey. And, I got to get the wind under me. I got to get, back to doing this. It's, I've had a lot going on recently. I ended up quitting my job. Not quitting per se. I went to per diem. So not exactly quit. Sort of quit, sort of not. I don't know. Basically, I'm only working there 1 day a week. I'm about to start my new job tomorrow as a courtesy patrol officer for a rich gated community. But I'm assuming this is only going to go for maybe about 2 to 3 months. And then possibly I'm going to be working for the police department. Okay? So, as 911 dispatch, possibly. That's why within the last couple days, I have had absolutely no time for anything else. I ended up getting convicted on Tuesday of this week. Today's Saturday. I watched a testimonial with Jeff Durbin in it and learned things about him that I had no idea, even though I've been learning from that guy on videos and in person, going to his church for the last, is it 2022? So I'd say about 5 years at this point, 5 or 6 years. So maybe it's actually 6 years now, because I remember watching the first time I saw him is when he took over for an episode, and I haven't seen it since, of the Dividing Line podcast with Dr. James White. And this had to have been 2015, 16. So I guess, about 5 or 6, maybe even 7 years. I'm not sure. And it doesn't matter. I got convicted. The Holy Spirit convicted me. I opened up the Bible and I screenshotted it and then sent it to my wife. And it said on there, the first thing I saw, because I felt that God was talking to me. Okay. And if any Pentecostals or anybody that's listening to the podcast right now, you can go ahead and tune out, because I'm talking about that the Lord is actually speaking to me. I do believe that. It's happened to me I don't know how many times. I do know the distinctions between the Lord talking to me, a demon talking to me, my ego talking to me, my intuition talking to me, my superego talk. Okay, so that's just its own tangent right there. Hold on, I actually forgot to grab my water. Give me a second. A very nice walk that I just got back from right now. Mixed in the energy powder with the water. And then I walked to this place called the Japanese Friendship Garden that had a waterfall, and there were a bunch of kids. And actually, I saw a Japanese woman. Thought that was kind of strange. Anyways, went on a very nice walk next to that in a dog park, and then came back here to do this, okay? Came here to restart, like I was saying. I watched his testimony, and then I got convicted. Then the Lord said, pick up a Bible and open it, and then read it. So I did. And I opened it. It was an ESV Bible. This is my wife's that she used to use for her old job back when she used to work for Young Life. And I opened it, and I believe it was on 1 Peter. And the start of the chapter said on there, the first thing I saw, it said, shepherd God's flock. And then I prayed, what does that mean, Lord? What do you want me to do? Didn't get an answer. But then I started getting convicted about on Thursday to Friday, let's see, today, Saturday. Yeah, I got convicted again 2 days ago where I felt him telling me, go back to doing your show and promote it. And I believe it's at the end of book of Matthew or Mark. It's not John. Is it John? No, it's not John. It's when Jesus talks about you need to make disciples of all creeds, colors, nations, basically everywhere. Go and spread my word and you will get a helper, which he was referring to as the Holy Spirit. Okay? So that's why I used to promote my videos. I actually haven't done that in, I would say I haven't done that in probably 6 months plus. Really dropped the ball with that, guys. But I'm back. I'm back on YouTube. And I'm going to be making these videos for the Lord's glory. And also for you guys who are interested in listening. Okay. All right, so let's go ahead and get started. Slow news day, okay. Really wasn't much to go over or talk about. If you want to talk about Easter, didn't that just happen? Easter was last week, right? It's like, well, when I was turning on the Daily Wire to get it's one of the news sources that I use sometimes. I think in 2022, after watching Ben Shapiro for the last 6 years at this point, his show was almost unwatchable unless you have to pay for the subscription. Being that, okay, if you watch on YouTube, and I'm not talking about YouTube Red, like the actual, what YouTube is supposed to be, YouTube, it talks about on there of whatever subject he's going over, there is a commercial literally less than every 5 minutes. It's really, really annoying. And all there was to talk about was President Joe Biden, having some kind of Easter service. I don't know. I wasn't really paying attention. I was stretching, getting ready. And getting ready for my walk. This is the first time I've actually had a walk here in the new place that we live at. But the whole thing was, and he couldn't stop laughing about, the Easter Bunny was directing him to walk in different directions. And then, I don't know who it was, a woman that was standing next to him, I didn't recognize her, told him to wave. And we're all supposed, the Republicans and conservatives, we're all supposed to sit there and laugh because look at how much of an idiot this man is. Let's all laugh about it. I don't know, man. I'm already past that point. I'm on much higher levels. I don't know. I'm on much higher levels of concentration at this point. I have been. It was like Daily Wire was like a stepping stone, but it's just, if you guys actually try to turn on even the local news station on the Fox, whatever, Sinclair's broadcasting of whatever the hell it is, whatever stupid thing it is, it's right when you turn it on, no matter what it is, it's still leftist propaganda. It's just very, very light. It's like a very pale shadow. It's like so you see a structure, and then let's say the sun is high up in the sky, and then the shadow is reflecting on the ground, but it's like there's something on top of the structure, and you can kind of hardly see the shadow. That's what's going on with mainstream media news. Inflation's been the worst in 40 years. I don't know. It's just, there really was not that much to look at. There's really not that much to talk about, but so bit of a slow news day. So let's go ahead. So the first, what we got on the bracket here, also really quick. So instead of doing a chat, like a super chat or a faith chat or whatever, if anyone wants to ask me questions, we don't do that on that show, or this show, What I'm going to do instead is we're going to do a Bible study for half of the show, and because I don't remember where we were at the last time I did a show like this, I have no clue as to where we were at, so we're just going to go off from what I'm currently reading now, which is the book of 1 Samuel chapter 4, verse 3. So this is going to be the other half of the show. Right now we're doing news, but it's going to be, so Samuel chapter 4, verse 3, and we're going to go to chapter 6, verse 18. Breakdown of most of the verses also. Okay, so that's what we are going to be doing for today's show. So for the next, basically, whenever I have time, I'm going to try to do the show every day. But if I have time, I'm going to do the show. If I don't, then we're going to have to skip the show for the day. I have been very busy lately. So I was supposed to go down to Tucson to go pay homage to the crew and to go see my family, and I didn't have time. So I'm going to have to go next Thursday. Anyways, so let's go ahead and get started with the first news story here. Disney has lost, so far at this point, $34 billion. And at this point, it is 300,000 canceled Disney Plus subscriptions. I mean, it's kind of weird that this is happening, right? I mean, it's when it comes to something like this, I'm not exactly sure. I mean, how would I put this? I'm not exactly sure, like, because in the entire time that Disney has been a company, this has never, I don't think this has ever happened before. I'm not exactly sure. I mean, losing this much, like this much amount of money is, look, this is what I'm going to say about this to start. The Lord will not be mocked. So, Disney, and I know there's people out there that love to go to Disneyland. A guy at my job tried to talk to me about Disneyland like 2 weeks ago. He was a nurse. And I've never had interest in Disneyland. I don't care. I've never cared. I mean, my wife does. Everybody's like, literally everybody I know is into Star Wars or into Lord of the Rings or into, I don't know, what's another one? Stranger Things? I don't know. But, Marvel movies, just all this stuff that I have it's 90% of this I have no interest in. I have interest in 10% because I saw the Batman. And while I was in the theaters, I was thinking to myself, man, this is a great film. Like, I really like this. Usually it's very difficult for me to say something like that. I mean, Joker, was that a DC film? I don't remember, but I remember seeing that in theaters. And that was probably one of the best films I think I've ever seen in my life. I loved it. Anyways, so Disney loses a lot of money, and you think there would be a safeguard because so many people have that NPC mindset. There's so many people out there that just walk around they just have blurred, not even visions, it's just black inside their head, And I'm not trying to come down on people because I know most of humanity are Walmart people, like I understand that. And God does bring people out of there. It's like that one thing I was listening to, that one debate a couple months ago with Dr. James White and what's his name? That guy who would he would like beat up his pulpit because he would get so mad during a sermon. I don't remember. I think his name is Pastor Anderson, I think. I don't remember what his name is, but he kept saying, if you don't have an understanding of all or most of the King James Bible, dude, like, I'm trying to do this show and there's somebody outside driving what sounds like a Mustang, and it sounds like the person is just driving up and down the street, like this street that I live next to. Whatever. It's really irritating. But anyways, so he was saying if you don't understand the King James Bible, then maybe you're just not saved. It's pretty much what he said. And Dr. White said, however, God wants to use whatever medium to get to that person is God's business. If that's what he wants to do and that's his will, then he's going to use it. Like, I'm not... this is a point of contention with me, but I agree. If someone just becomes saved and they're a baby Christian and they go to Joel Osteen's Freemason church and this person sort of grows, or they get the Message Bible or even the Queen James Bible, even though there should be a wrestling in there of that person's heart and the mind interacting with this, saying, you know what, I think this is garbage, but I'm getting something out of it. Who's to say that God is not? I mean, obviously it's sinful, but there are instances where God will meet you in certain ways. And then the revelation, if this person isn't God's family, will have that revelation, right? And then once the revelation happens, then they will start reading an ESV, NASB, New King James Version, whatever it is. And if that's how they want to interact, I mean, an extreme teen study Bible, like whatever it is. My first, for the people who don't remember, I've talked about this a couple times on my show. My first, what you could call, quote unquote, teacher or theologian was Rob Bell. I learned a lot through him when I first got saved. I bought all of his books, okay? At the time. So this is like 10 years ago. Velvet Christ, Drops Like Stars, Jesus Saves Us, Save Us From Your Followers. There's a book on marriage. That was when it was getting really iffy, and then, it's when I discovered people like John MacArthur and others that are Reformed pastors, and I started reading through my pastoral study program. I started reading the sermons of Jonathan Edwards and things like that. And then I realized, okay, so Rob Bell is so whether he knows it or not, he's a wolf in sheep's clothing. Anyways, Disney, don't care about them. If, like what the construction workers do in the Amazon rainforest, if they went to Anaheim or they went to, where's Disney World at? I think Florida. If thousands of construction workers came with those giant bulldozers and just destroyed everything in Disneyland, I would not shed one tear. I don't care. I've never been one of those people where it's like, well, I have to put on the Mickey, ears hat and, let's stand in line for 2 hours to get on Space Mountain, and then we can sit here while this chair shakes and some android thing, shoots lasers at us from some crappy new Star Wars film like Rogue One. Oh my God. Anyway, so yeah, they lost a lot of money and lost to cancel subscriptions. I still currently have Disney Plus. Please forgive me for that, because I watch The Simpsons almost on a daily basis to this day. Okay, I'm sorry. Please forgive me for that. Let's go to the next one. Okay, so the Russo-Ukrainian War. Still talking about that. Don't really know if it's a travesty or not. I've seen that on Facebook a lot, like when COVID started. Oh, doggy. Oh boy. When it comes to that, it's it's straight up propaganda. If you go on Facebook or whatever, Getter or like Twitter or whatever, and you see those things it was like when COVID first started, where it said it had that the swish symbol, not Nike, but the I don't know what it is. It was like what do you call that? Like like the cancer ribbon, the Susan G. Komen thing, but it was like yellow and it said, "Stay inside, save lives." That's so retarded. Anyway, so this is the new thing. I see it in public. It's just like the Black Lives Matter flag and the signs. I see bumper stickers around here on people's cars, and I see, signs planted in people's yards around here that have the Ukrainian flag. It says "Stand with Ukraine." It's just, stand with Ukraine, stand with George Floyd. Okay, everybody, let's stand for something. It's just NPC mindset, drivel, it's just, I don't even know if I even want to talk about COVID. I have it written down. Do I? Let's see. I don't. Okay, so I'm not talking about COVID. I can't stand it. It's like the world's most boring subject. So, the Ukrainian war, right now, Mosul, that's in Syria. I forgot where they are. I know that they, so far, there was like a 20,000 casualties in that war. Very complicated situation, but hey, I mean, I saw something leak on Gab. Don't know if it's true or not. I'm not gonna tell you guys that this is true or it's not true. I don't know. But supposedly President Zelensky has been involved in the frazzle drip. Okay, and that's all. That's the only thing I'm gonna bring up with that. Okay, he's connected to the Clintons and Obamas, and basically just he's involved in things that are very disgusting. Okay, involving little children. Okay, so possibly don't know if that's true or not. I don't. I cannot confirm that. So that's just it's what I've read online. Okay, so the Russian war. Don't exactly know what's going on with this. That Putin didn't want to join NATO. The thing is, even to this moment, well, it's just because I've been watching videos and reading about the whole Johnny Depp thing, because I guess that's what culture's on right now, is Johnny Depp, instead of us covering the war. I mean, the war is covered. It's just, it's fads in a dark, morbid light. War is a fad, if you think about it, like now in 2022, but it's just, when is there not a genocide happening? When is there not? I mean, there was 30 wars going on, half of them secretly, before this one started. But we all have to hate Russia for some reason. I get that it's a travesty and that we should pray for them. We should pray that war doesn't happen. But at the same time, even though Christ is the King of Peace, he's also the King of War. It's all over the Old Testament, and there's places in the New Testament that talks about this. So for God's people like Israel, losing and winning wars all over the place, we might even go over that, because I haven't actually read 1 Samuel. I haven't read this book in years, but might be talking about war in this one. It talked about this is it. This is the one with Eli. Eli and his crummy sons. Anyways, who would take the fat, they would take the good meats when they would pull the hooks out of the temples. And the women that were coming in to do basically their Sunday services at the time, to do worship for God, they were taking them aside and having sex with the women that were coming to church. Like, straight up, these kids were scumbags. So, anyways, and God had decided, I don't like them, they will die. That is their destination. Okay? I remember specifically reading that. So, he's a God of peace and God of war. It's his will, and that's what we got to go with, okay? And that's what I'm going to go with on the show. So I don't know what's going on with that. Anyways, all right, let's go to the next subject. So Hunter Biden meets Joe at the White House for a business meeting. Here's a funny thing. When it comes to Hunter Biden, I actually won a poetry contest a couple months ago because of a poem I wrote about Joe Biden's paintings. So, if you can believe it. True story. Well, I didn't win. I think I got second place. No, I think I did win. I got first or second. I don't remember. But, anyways, so they're meeting for some business meeting at the White House. Who cares? Next one. It's pedophile father meets pedophile son. Let's talk about it. All right. So number 4. This one's kind of interesting. Hold on. I'm going to edit this out because I have to go. I'm going to blow my nose just a second. Okay, sorry about that. All right, so this one's a bit interesting because this reminds me of that Rage Against the Machine cover of their first album. What the song that had Bomb Track? I don't remember the name of the album. I think it was self-titled. Man sets himself on fire in front of the Supreme Court. Okay. Don't know if it was a form of protest. Don't know if this guy was crazy, if he was a sleeper cell, told to do this. I highly doubt it. I'm assuming it was a form of protest. Joe Biden, I know, brought into the Supreme Court some woman named, I think her last name was Jackson, I think. I don't remember. It was a black woman that saw on TikTok what this woman has done as a judge in the past. And this woman is scum. I mean, and yeah, who saw that coming? So she was giving the lightest sentences possible to registered sex offenders and men who had, or boys that, men, okay, a boy that shaves. Let me retract that. That had horrific sex crimes against kids, and she would get them off on the lightest sentences possible. So, I mean, it's apparent to me that this woman's in the Illuminati. She's a Freemason scum. So, I'm trying not to cuss here. This, I mean, here's the thing. Am I going to go in front of this judge? I highly doubt it. Am I ever going to go to the Supreme Court? Highly doubt it. But it's like, great, okay, we have another person in there that has the interests of other Freemasons, in their warlock coven, sorry. And so this is just what we're going with now, and then she's going to influence decisions. And then the Roe v. Wade thing is probably going to continue now in the opposite direction than the fact that abortion should just be straight up illegal and should be punishable by, you get an abortion, you go to jail for life. You go to maximum prison for life. Any woman who gets an abortion or a man that convinces a woman to get an abortion should be put in prison for life. That's murdering. There is no way around that. I know this is a controversial subject. I don't really care. This is my show. You don't like it, go listen to something else. Okay? Abortion is murder, and there is no way around that. You cannot convince me any other way that it's not murder. It's the same thing as if, oh, well, what's wrong with incest? Like, I saw that a couple days ago on a meme page. You're a bigot if you're not okay with pedophilia. So, yeah. And then I sent a meme to the, because I send an email out every Friday. I send an email out with a bunch of memes called the Old Death Ministries page. And it's just an email where I just send pictures to my friends and anybody who wants to join. But some guy, it's like two gay guys, like, put that, with the whole clapping emoji, you're a bigot if you don't believe a man can love a child, like, whatever it is. And then it was SpongeBob and Patrick, and they were standing next to a wood chipper, and SpongeBob says, okay, get in. I don't know. It actually says here in the Old Testament, the book of Deuteronomy and the book of Leviticus, that with people like that have debased, deranged minds that are not straight, that are essentially what we would call a Marxist nowadays, or someone would be an Antifa, or basically someone who is not straight, okay, would be stoned to death. But because Christ's grace is abounding, and that we should treat everybody with love, we can't do that anymore, okay? But, look, you cause an abortion, you should be killed. And it's not murder, it's killing, because those people are going to have to answer to God for that on the day of judgment. It's going to be one heavy price. So, anyways, okay, so man set himself on fire in front of the Supreme Court. I'm assuming that was protest. I'm guessing, not exactly sure what's going on with that. But yeah, I mean, that could be because Joe Biden put that woman in there, and then that's why that guy did that. Possibly, we don't know. So, all right, so next part, so we're going to go to the no spin zone. Sorry about that, Rob. I'm bringing it back for my show. The Suns in the first round of the playoffs. So they are currently taking on I almost said Orlando, New Orleans Pelicans. And I believe the first round, they are at 1-1. Let's see. Oh, they won yesterday. Okay, so now they're 2-1. Okay. So they are now 2-1. They won 114 to 111 against the Pelicans in the finals for the Western Conference, and I believe they have now it's like 3 or 4 more games left. Okay, so all right. So obviously, I'm a Phoenix Suns fan. So I'm a basketball fan. So that's good. So what we want, I mean, I'm not going to pray for it, but because these are just things that are, I mean, okay. So when it comes to sports, really quick, in the grand scheme of things, really doesn't matter. But I'm fine if you want to be into it. Just don't worship it. Okay, like don't. I've worked with people and I've worked with guys in the past at other jobs who worshipped college basketball teams, and I've known people that worshipped college football teams, professional football, whatever it is. I mean, a lot of these people were MK Ultra athletes, but it's if you want to watch and get into it and get excited, that's fine. Just remember who God is. It's Christ. He goes first, okay? Not Devin Booker, all right? So, yeah, I'm just going to put it like that. But it's good that the Suns hope they go all the way. They're probably going to take on the Milwaukee Bucks. Once again, this is revenge season after all, and they're going to beat the Bucks. And it's going to be in the last game at the Phoenix Suns Stadium. And it is going to be one hell of a time me getting home from work on that night. So, anyways, all right. So, good. All right. So, they're 2-1. And so for the last thing, we're going to go over for the news tonight is the clash in Israel at the Holy Fire ceremony. Okay, Christian pilgrims and Israel police clash during Holy Fire ceremony. Thousands of pilgrims arrived in the Old City for the Holy Fire of Saturday of Light. And this is from the Jerusalem Post. I had to actually look this up because I have no idea what this is. What the ceremony of lights is, I've never heard of this. So clash broke out between Christian pilgrims and Israeli police officers on Saturday during the ceremony, which has not taken place in the full capacity of 2 years. Excuse me. The Holy Fire ceremony did not take place as it usually would over the past 2 years due to COVID-19 restrictions. It's so dumb. Really quick. Noam Chomsky's in the news. Noam Chomsky is actually a teacher at a college I used to attend, but never met him though. Anyways, I think he's going to die in the next couple of years. But anyway, so really quick, I remember when COVID first started, and I remember it being stupid when it first started when we had no information about it. I knew it was dumb. I remember specifically getting out of work when I was an anesthesia technician / OR assistant at the surgery center. And I remember getting out of there, my girlfriend, who turned into my wife, called me and said, "Hey, I'm really nervous right now about this COVID-19 thing." And I said, "Why?" And so she said, "Well, President Trump is shutting down most airports, and we're not taking people from any other countries because the spread has gotten so bad." And then I remember just sitting there in the car as I was driving to, I think, Bash's to go get my nasty dinner. I remember specifically telling her, this is not the Black Plague. This is when this first started. Like, this had to have been December of 2000. Let's see. So 2019 to maybe 2020, January. I remember specifically saying, this is not a big deal. This is not the Black Death. This is not fleas jumping to and fro like or even something like the Spanish flu. It is not that. This is just another smaller version of the flu virus. 2.5 years later, I was correct. That's what it was. Getting all these vaccines was pointless. Shutting everything down was pointless. Basically, it was this whole thing for the person that can see the unseen eye. All this was to see if a police state would work in the world. And it did, sadly. Talks about the Bible the most. I mean, we're in the Bible and the Gospels, we're called sheep. Sheep are stupid animals. They're you can't trust them. They walk off without, acknowledging that there is danger out there. They won't stay put with the pack. I mean, I'm a sheep myself. I make stupid decisions sometimes, but I try to be a sheep dog. I'm more of a sheep dog nowadays than a sheep, but yeah, it's just this whole thing was dumb. It was completely pointless. Dr. Fauci, you saw him when he was before he did one of his most recent speeches where he had his left hand halfway through on his pocket of his jacket. On TV for the people that are in the know that see him do that. We know, okay? Little thing called the internet. Now we know about their secrets and the disgusting, nasty, satanic things that they do behind the scenes to get fame and fortune, even though you age and you could die at any moment. Makes sense to me. I mean, like, why would you even join the Freemasons? It's so stupid. Like, you're going to die. You will age. So what? All this, the fortune, the money, having sex with whomever woman you want. Like, all these things are going to fade. These aren't permanent. And you could be sacrificed yourself. So what is the point? It's dumb. Just submit your will to Christ. There is no other way to live. Even being a Buddhist or being Hindu or whatever, or becoming a Muslim and submitting to the state of Islam, all of that is pointless. Like, it's dumb. All of it's dumb. Just submit your knee to Christ, okay? Anyways, let's continue. The fire ceremony did not take place as it usually... Okay. So the police were expecting a large amount of pilgrims than previous years. The number of pilgrims admitted to the old city was therefore limited to 4,000 people compared to the regular 11,000 that have attended in the past. The limit was also said to have been set to prevent a tragedy like Mount Meron last year, in which 45 people were trampled to death after more people were admitted to the tomb of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai that it can hold. Oh, yeah, I can't see why that would be a problem. Look at that. It's a picture of them inside of this church in Israel. I think it says Jerusalem right here. All these Christian, quote-unquote, pilgrims, another quote-unquote, inside this church, and everybody is standing next to each other in this. Yeah, I would not want to do it. What is the point? Why would you do that? I mean, I understand if you want to do that, I don't know, like a form of a vacation. I mean, I would go to this. I would do it. I'm not going inside, but I would go around it where there's an open area. Holy fire is said to be a glow that rises from Jesus' tomb in the Church of the Holy Sepulchre. Sepulchre on Saturday of Light. The day before Orthodox Easter Sunday, the glow is believed to turn into a column of fire from which the clergy and pilgrims light candles and light the church, which is kept dark before the ceremony begins. Tension has been high in Jerusalem as Ramadan, Passover, and Easter coincided this year. Daily riots have broken out in the Temple Mount over the past couple of weeks since Ramadan started. And somebody named Richard wrote, "That's that." Okay. Orthodox, you say. What is this? Said to be a glow that rises from Jesus' tomb. Okay, but I don't understand this. That's not in the Bible. What? The fire that rose from his tomb. There was no fire. It was. I mean, not that it was written in there in the Gospels. They rolled a giant boulder over the area where the entrance was when Christ's body, when his dead body was laid there. and then he rose again in 3 days. But there was no indication there that there was a fight. Okay, this must be some stupid tradition by the Orthodox Church. All right. And a lot of people got pushed away from doing it and were not allowed to do it because of COVID restrictions. I mean, I don't know, dude. It's when it comes to things like this, I honestly, it's like NPCs are clashing with other NPCs. That's, dude, if you want to have your traditions in the Russian Orthodox or Greek Orthodox or whatever, and you want to do these things that are not specified, they're not told in Scripture, in here, if you want to do those things, go ahead and do them. You are free to do them, but I mean, I've said this so many times, even recently, like in my group chat or talking to people in public or talking to coworkers. I brought this up so many times, it might be my catchphrase. Do whatever you want, but there's going to be extreme consequences when you die. Because you're going to have to answer to God for these things. When a man like this rabbi, whoever, Shalom, whatever this guy's name is, all these people are here in Jerusalem for this service, right? For the fire of Christ's tomb, of whatever tradition, I'm sure stems back hundreds of years, I'm sure. That rabbi, who was a devout Jew, Orthodox Jew, where do you think he is right now after he died? Take a wild guess, and it's not heaven, okay? The point is to be with Jesus. That's the point. And people attach themselves to things when God does not call people. They kind of just naturally make attachments, I guess, of whatever it is that you want to be and you want to do. I'm going to be a garbage man. I'm going to be a construction worker. You know what? This vibes with me, or a demon that you're not seeing, or something that's like that could be like a demonic force is pulling you in. Okay, well, I'm Buddhist and I work for a library. You know, it's just, people just gravitate towards things and just become things because, I don't know. I mean, Jordan Peterson had that video that I watched a while ago, a couple years ago, about, he talked about Alexander Solzhenitsyn. He wrote the Gulag Archipelago. He talked about no man is a piano key. And then I also read that for one of my episodes back then on this channel. But the more that I think about it, I think that most people are piano keys. Most people like to be enslaved. If the government's not, I mean, obviously freedom and free speech and all that stuff in our Constitution is obviously important, but I mean, you know, it's just, I don't know what to do with myself, so I'll become X, okay? I'll become a placement manager. I don't know, I'll become a politician. I'll become a cop. Like, you just fall into things because you don't know what else to do with your life, like most people in relationships. When they get with women or they get married to a woman, to me, most of the time, when I see those things, people are just settling. You're not genuinely in love with this person. You got too much baggage. She's got too much baggage. She's aging. You're aging. You're both you by the day are looking uglier. You're just hard pressed to not be alone or feel loneliness or feel depression. That's why it's like, I don't know, it's like we're all combating. It's like everybody's subconsciously doing therapeutic nihilism, but I don't know. So anyways, let's go ahead and start reading the Bible. And then after we read the Bible, I'll tell you what you can find me on and all that stuff. If you want to watch the show, it's going to be every day. I don't know what time it is. Preferably in the morning. All right, so let's go ahead and read the Bible. Let's start and do the verse-by-verse breakdown. Oh, my nose. All right. And my boss just sent me a text, my new boss, and said, your training starts tomorrow at 6 p.m. to 2 a.m. And then I did what every middle-aged white man does. I gave a thumbs up. Okay, so let's start from verse 3. First Samuel, if you want to follow along with me, go ahead and pull the app up or go get your Bible out. I personally, for myself, for the most part, I personally like to use the actual Bible that I can hold because I write on it. Anyways, so let's start with First Samuel chapter 4, verse 3. And once again, we will be ending on chapter 6, verse 18 for today's news show. And when the people came to the camp, oh, really quick, this is an ESV version. I think I already mentioned that. ESV Study Bible. All right, let's continue. Start. Ark of the Covenant, this one. Page 498. And when the people came to the camp, the elders of Israel said, "Why has the Lord defeated us today before the Philistines? Let us bring the Ark of the Covenant of the Lord here from Shiloh, Shiloh, that it may come among us and save us from the power of our enemies." So the people sent to Shiloh and brought from there the Ark of the Covenant of the Lord of hosts, who was enthroned on the cherubim, cherubim. That's the cherubim. That's the angels, I think. That's a class of angels. Who was enthroned on the cherubim. Is that the mercy seat? No, that's not the mercy seat. See, I'm already screwing this up. Look at this. I'm already making mistakes. That's why I need to read this every day. Okay. And the two sons of Eli, Hophni and Phinehas, were there with the Ark of the Covenant of God. Those are the two kids I just told you guys about. Or the two men, boys who shave. Not men. That I told you about we're going to get to that point at some point. I think it actually may be in this chapter of God is so infuriated with them that he destines them for death, eternal death. Okay. As soon as the Ark of the Covenant of the Lord came into the camp, all of Israel gave a mighty shout, so that the earth resounded. And when the Philistines heard the noise of the shouting, they said, "What does this great shouting in the camp of the Hebrews mean?" And when they learned that the Ark of the Lord had come into the camp, the Philistines were afraid. For they said, "A god has come into the camp." And they said, "Woe to us, for nothing like this has happened before. Woe to us, who can deliver us from the power of these mighty gods? These are the gods who struck the Egyptians with every sort of plague in the wilderness. Take courage and be men, O Philistines, lest you become slaves to the Hebrews that have, as they have been to you, be men and fight." All right, just a second. Okay, just gonna let some light in here. All right, it's difficult to see the Bible. All right, let's continue. Verse 10. Excuse me. So the Philistines fought, and Israel was defeated, and they fled, every man to his home, and there was a very great slaughter. For 30,000 foot soldiers of Israel fell, and the ark of God was captured, and the two sons of Eli, Hophni and Phinehas, died. The death of Eli, verse 12. A man of Benjamin ran from the battle line and came to Shiloh the same day, with his clothes torn and with dirt on his head. When he arrived, Eli was sitting on his seat by the road watching, for his heart trembled for the ark of God. And when the man came into the city and told the news, all the city cried out. When Eli heard the sound of the outcry, he said, "What is this uproar?" Then the man hurried and came and told Eli. And now Eli was 98 years old, and his eyes were set so that he could not see. And the man said to Eli, "I am he who has come from the battle. I fled from the battle today." And he said, "How did it go, my son?" He who brought the news answered and said, "Israel has fled before the Philistines, and there has also been a great defeat among the people. Your two sons also, Hophni and Phinehas, are dead, and the ark of God has been captured. As soon as he mentioned the ark of God, Eli fell over backward from his seat by the side of the gate, and his neck was broken, and he died. For the man was old and heavy. He had judged Israel 40 years. Except for his sons, that was his sin. Okay. Verse 19, now his daughter-in-law, the wife of Phinehas, was pregnant, about to give birth. And when she heard the news that the ark of God was captured and that her father-in-law and her husband were dead, she bowed and gave birth, and her pains came upon her. And about the time of the death, the woman attending her said to her, do not be afraid, for you have bore a son. But she did not answer or pay attention, and she named the child Ichabod, saying, the glory has departed from Israel, because the ark of God has been captured, and because of her father-in-law and her husband. And she said, the glory has departed from Israel, for the ark of God has been captured. Okay, chapter 5. And this chapter is pretty short. It's only like 3 paragraphs. The Philistines and the ark. When the Philistines captured the ark of God, they brought it before Ebenezer to Ashdod. Then the Philistines took the ark of God and brought it into the house of Dagon and set it up beside Dagon. Really quick trivia here with Dagon. That turned into the Catholic Church. Okay, so let's continue. And when the people of Ashdod rose early the next day, behold, Dagon, so Dagon's a fish, it's a fish demon, had fallen face downwards on the ground before the ark of the Lord. So they took Dagon and put him back in his place. But when they rose early the next morning, behold, Dagon had fallen down face downwards on the ground before the ark of the Lord. And the head of Dagon and both his hands were lying cut off on the threshold. Only the trunk of Dagon was left to him. And this is why the priests of Dagon and all who enter the house of Dagon do not tread on the threshold of Dagon and Ashdod to this day. Okay. Fish demon god. That's Dagon and his followers. The hand of the Lord was heavy against the people of Ashdod, and he terrified and afflicted them with tumors, both Ashdod and its territory. And when the men of Ashdod saw how things were, they said, the ark of the God of Israel must not remain with us, for his hand is hard against us and against Dagon, our God. So they sent and gathered together all the lords of the Philistines and said, what shall we do with the ark of the God of Israel? They answered, let the ark of the God of Israel he brought around to Gath. So they brought the ark of the God of Israel there. But after they had brought it around, the hand of the Lord was against the city, causing a very great panic. And he afflicted the men of the city, both old and young, so that tumors broke out onto them. So they sent the ark of God to Ekron. But as soon as the ark of God came to Ekron, the people of Ekron cried out, they have brought around to us the ark of the God of Israel to kill us and our people. They sent therefore gathered together all the lords of the Philistines and said, send away the ark of the God of Israel and let it return to its own place, that it may not kill us and our people. For there was a deadly panic throughout the whole city. The hand of God was very heavy there. The men who did not die were struck with tumors, and the cry of the city went up to heaven. Now, starting chapter 6, the ark returned to Israel. So everybody, that capture of the ark of God was cursed with death or boils and tumors. Okay? Okay, so we're going to go from verse 1 to verse 18, then the breakdowns. The ark of the Lord was in the country of the Philistines 7 months. And the Philistines called for the priests and the dividers and said, what shall we do with the ark of the Lord? Tell us what we shall send it to its place. They said, if you send away the ark of the God of Israel, Do not send it empty, but by all means by means return him a guilt offering. Then you will be healed, and it will be known to you why his hand does not turn away from you. And they said, what is the guilt offering that we shall return to him? They answered, 5 golden tumors and 5 golden mice, according to the number of the lords of the Philistines, for the same plague was on all of you and on your lords. I believe the lords here is referring to either the demiurges or lords as in someone who's like a high priest. Not exactly sure. It might be in the breakdown. So you must make images of your tumors and images of your mice that ravaged the land. Remember what I talked about with you guys and COVID and how that old thing with the mice that happened because of the Black Plague? So the same thing. I don't know if it was the same disease, but anyways. And give glory to the God of Israel. Perhaps he will lighten his hand from off you and your gods and your land. Why should you harden your hearts as the Egyptians and the Pharaohs hardened their hearts after he had dealt severely with them? They did not send the people away, and they departed. Now then, take and prepare a new cart and 2 milk cows, on which there has never come a yoke. And yoke the cows to the carts, and take their calves home away from them. And take the ark of the Lord and place it onto the cart and put it in the box at its side. The figures of gold which are returning to him as a guilt offering. Then send it off and let it go its way. And watch. If it goes up the way to its own land, to Beth Shemesh, Shemesh, then it is he who has done us great harm. But if not, then we shall know that it is not his hand that struck us. It happened to us by coincidence. Yeah, coincidence, okay. All right, so verse 10. The men did so, and 2 milk cows, and took 2 milk cows and yoked them to the cart and shut up their calves, or I don't know why I'm saying it like that, calves, at home. And they put the ark of the Lord on the cart and the box with the golden mice and the images of their tumors. And the cows went straight into the direction of Beth Shemesh along one highway, lowing as they went. They turned neither to the right nor to the left. And the lords of the Philistines went after them as far as the border of Beth Shemesh. Now the people of Beth Shemesh were reaping their wheat harvest in the valley. And when they lifted up their eyes and saw the ark, they rejoiced to see it. The ark came into the field of Joshua of Beth Shemesh and stopped there. A great stone was there. They split up the wood of the cart and offered the cows a burnt offering to the Lord. And the Levites took down the ark of the Lord and the box that was beside it, in which were the golden figures, and set them upon the great stone. And the men of Beth Shemesh offered burnt offerings and sacrificed sacrifices on the day of the Lord. And when the 5 lords of the Philistines saw it, they returned that day to Ekron. These are the golden tumors that the Philistines, that the Philistines returned as a guilt offering to the Lord. 1 for Ashdod, 1 for Gaza, 1 for Ashkelon, 1 for Goth, 1 for Ekron. And the golden mice, according to the number of all the cities that the Philistines belonged to, with the 5 lords, both fortified cities and unwalled villages, the great stone beside which they set down the ark of the Lord is witness to this day in the field of Joshua of Beth Shemesh. And that's where we will stop there. All right, now the verse-by-verse breakdown. Okay. From Shelah, the Ark of the Covenant has been in the temple of the Lord, which was in chapter 3, verse 3 of this book. Moses was commanded by the Lord to put the tablets in the covenant, or the testimony, into the ark. Okay. Cherubim, next part, often appears in the iconography of the ancient Near East as hybrid figures with animal and human characteristics. So I was right about that. It's a class type of angels. Oh, my allergies are really bad right now. Okay. All right. Enthroned. Next part, the ark was the visible sign of the holy presence of the Lord, whose real throne is on high above the heavens. But it was more than just a sign, for the ark was also the focal point of God's actual presence among his people, which is in Exodus chapter 25. It says, "There I will meet you, and from above the mercy seat, from between the two cherubim that are on the ark of the testimony, I will speak to you," which is also in the book of Numbers, chapter 7. The conception of the ark as a visible sign of the Lord's presence gave a military importance to the ark, as can be seen in Numbers chapter 10. It functions as a battle safeguard and showed that the Lord was present and fighting for Israel. This understanding was certainly behind the actions of the elders in the present story. They may have thought that the Lord smote them because they had not trusted in the ark and had neglected it, or perhaps it just thought that it would perform a miracle if used magically, that the ark would inevitably grant victory was a persistent idea that even the present story was not able to dispel. Okay, so which there was a lot of black magic around this time period. This because this is around the beginning of time. This was after basically the book of Exodus. So whoever had the Ark of the Covenant was the one that was winning the battle. So whichever army needed that to win, because that's the Lord grants victories to battles, to people. Excuse me. Whomever is fighting who the Lord blesses is the one that's going to win. Okay. All right. The Hebrew might also mean that the Lord may come. In either case, the elders are treating the Lord as a thing. By saying bring, the narrator is possibly conveying the idea that the people treated the sacred object disrespectfully as an instrument through which victory might be obtained. Also referring to the Ark of the Covenant. Surely the covenant people had lost the sense of awe towards God's holy presence. Next, they brought from there the ark. The verb literally is carried. So they carried the ark by its poles. That was the proper way to move it. Okay, because it had 4 poles on it. All right, next. That Hophni and Phinehas were there suggested that they supported the move, at least to some extent. Eli, however, seems to have had reservations with them doing that. Okay. All right. And then we just read about what happened to both of them, who have done awful things in the sight of the Lord. Okay. All right. Next part, chapter 4, verse 3. The elders of Israel appeared throughout the history of Israel. They were a group of senior tribal leaders entrusted with important decisions. They mentioned from the time of the sojourn in Egypt through the New Testament. Other nations also had them, which is also talked about in Numbers chapter 22, cities that were governed by elders. Okay? Governed by elders. In Samuel, the elders of Israel are instrumental in establishing a king. They asked Samuel for a king, which was in, we'll see it later in chapter 8, verse 4. Saul is concerned with their opinion that they are leaders in choosing a king after Saul's death, and that they also are Absalom's counsel, which is going to be talked about later on in 2 Samuel chapter 17, verse 4. Okay? Excuse me. Sorry, I'm just having bad allergies. Anyways. A mighty shout. Next part. The Israelites are confident in the ark, but the rest of the story will show that they have failed to approach God's presence in faith and obedience. Okay, next part. A god, the gods, verse 7 and 8 in chapter 4. The Hebrew word for gods in both cases is Elohim. The plural Eloah, God, Elohim, is the usual word to refer to the God of Israel, which is in Genesis chapter 1, verse 1. The plural form is used to express majesty, but it is always used with a singular verb. In 1 Samuel chapter 4, verse 7, the Philistines think that the ark is a god, or God, that has come, singular. In verse 8, they use the plural form for struck. The narrator seems to be mocking their misunderstanding of the one God of Israel. Exodus chapter 7 through 12 describes God struck the Egyptians with every sort of plague. Struck the Egyptians in the wilderness probably reflects the Philistines' ignorance about the exact course of events during Israel's wilderness wanderings. So basically referring to that in the book of Exodus. All right, next part. Israel was defeated. In view of verse 3, one cannot suppose that the Philistines on their way or on their own were the cause, because God dictates war battles. Okay, every man on his home, literally every man to his tent. This is the common cliche for disbanding an army, either by decision or because of defeat, which is talked about also in 2 Samuel chapter 18, verse 17. Next part, verse 12. The messenger ran a distance of nearly 22 miles, tearing one's clothes. Next part. Often, along with putting dirt on one's head, was a normal reaction of grief or horror that is found all throughout the Old Testament, which is what he did when he saw Eli. He ripped his clothes and put ash on his head. Okay? Eli was sitting beside the gate, watching the road, but he could not see the messenger when he entered. Presumably, the people of the city brought the messenger to Eli to tell him the news in person, being that Eli was blind. I think he was mostly blind. Okay. Your two sons are dead is a sign that Eli had been told to expect a forewarning of the near demise of his house. But it seems that he had an even more concern about God's Ark of the Covenant. Bowed is literally crouched, the position for giving birth. It probably is a premature delivery brought on by shock when the woman gave birth. Next part, verses 21 through 22, like Eli, Phinehas' wife seems more concerned with the ark than with her own husband. Next part, Ichabod means, where is the glory? She mourns for Israel without the presence of God. Okay? And departed does not mean to just go away, but to be exiled. She doesn't know that the Lord is going to demonstrate his glory in the land of Philistia. Philistia, Philistia, I think that's how it's pronounced. All right, the Ark of Philistia. Next part. The Philistines think their victory indicates that their god Dagon is a superior god to the God of Israel, and they brought the ark into Dagon's temple to honor their god. God, however, showed his power over Dagon. Okay? Our Lord is the one that made Dagon that scumbag fallen angel. Okay? Next part, Ashdod. Verse 1. And Ekron were the two northernmost cities of the Philistine Pentapolis, which is a couple of places. Ashdod was near the coast on the important Via Maris Sea Road, about 30 miles south of Aphek, A-P-H-E-K, Aphek. Excuse me. Next part, Dagon. Dagon is a deity known from the early Bronze Age Mesopotamian and northern Syrian cities such as Elba. Excuse me. Such as Elba, Mari, Emar, and Ugarit. The Philistines apparently adopted him as a principal god soon after their arrival in Canaan. It was once thought that the name meant fish, but the view is no longer accepted. More recently, derivation or derivation. I can't pronounce that. Derivation from a word meaning grain has been proposed, but it is not certain. The practice of capturing the enemy's god was common in ancient Near East warfare, and it is often mentioned in documents such as the Assyrian royal inscriptions. It was understood that the people whose god were in enemies' hands was completely conquered. Okay, I got to move this phone. Hold on. Oh. All right, I have to stand up now. I can't keep bending over. It's hurting my neck and my head. All right, so I'm just going to read the Bible standing up. All right, so that was a part of this. Whoops. Of Dagon. Okay, let's continue. All right, so verse 3. The next morning, the statue of Dagon is found in a position suggested submission before the ark of the Lord. This has become a battle between deities. Dagon cannot protect himself or his people from the hand of the Lord. He can't. It's impossible. The temple threshold was considered especially worthy of respect because it separated sacred and common areas. Similarly, doorposts, which marked the entrance of the home, were important. The narrator makes the observation that the Philistines to this day still bear witness to the humiliation of their god. This custom is said to have survived in Gaza in the 1st century AD. Next part, the tumors, verse 6. Together with an apparently abnormal number of mice in the area, which was in verse 5, have led most commentators to identify the disease as a bubonic plague, yet has no reference to the mice at all, which is what I was saying before. Jumping around from mice on the fleas and whatnot, so that's what it basically is saying. All right, so the 5 lords were the rulers of the 5 ruling Philistine cities. Okay, so it was the rulers of the cities. Okay, so the kings. But they weren't kings. Gath was the city of Goliath. The Ittai and the 600 Gittites. Gath is probably Tel Est Safi, about 12 miles east of Ashdod and 5 miles south of Ekron, at the foot of the Judean hills. Okay, and look at that. We were just talking about Jerusalem. Ekron, next part, is another city of the Philistine Pentapolis. Most probably Tel Mink, 22 miles west of Jerusalem on the western border between Philistia and Judea. This journey of the ark, taken from city to city by its panicky captors, is almost a parody of the Triumph March. Ekron had been discovered and excavated by archaeologists. A monumental inscription belonging to the early 7th century BC has been found in what appears to be a temple complex. It is a plea to a goddess to protect Ashish, the ruler of Ekron, and to bless him with long life and to bless his land. Okay. Let's see. The return of the ark. This is chapter 7, or chapter 6, verse 1 to chapter 7, verse 1. The Philistines test whether their trouble comes from Israel's God, which leads to the ark's return to the territory of Israel. The Philistines reluctantly admit defeat and consult with their priests and diviners to see how to send the ark back. While a guilt offering as described in Leviticus chapter 5, verses 14 through 17 did not exist for the Philistines, the ancient Near East shared the concept of misappropriating holy things or places to profane use. Thus, the Philistines view their current plight as God's heavy hand upon them for their desecration of the sacred ark. This desecration required a sacrifice as some kind of recompense to the God of the ark. Okay. So we just read that they wanted to give it up. So the 5 golden tumors and the 5 golden mice. The exact relationship between the tumors and the mice is difficult to determine, but from the list, one possibility is that only 5 golden objects are involved, and that the "and" should be taken here as namely, as it is not uncommon in Hebrew, yielding 5 golden tumors, namely 5 golden mice. While that reading is grammatically possible, most interpreters understand 10 items sent forth here, 5 golden tumors as well as the golden mice. Okay? Even the pagan Philistine must eventually give glory to the God of Israel. It says in there in the book of Revelation, every knee will bow, every tongue will confess. Okay? The Lord's wrath is on everybody at all times, of everyone who does not have the mark, who does not have the helper inside of them, who is not saved. The wrath of God is on that person, okay? Destined for eternal darkness and the lake of fire, okay? Next part. This is an experiment to discover whether the cause of the Philistines' trouble was a natural occurrence or a coincidence or a supernatural one. Untrained milk cows could not pull carts together well, and if they went anywhere, it would be home to their calves. Therefore, if they pulled the cart upward toward Israel, it must be the work of the Lord. Okay? Because they weren't sure, they were confused. The golden mice in the image of their tumors refers either to 10 items or 5, so we already went over that. Beth Shemesh was part way up the Sorek Valley, a valley connecting Israel with Philistia, the scene of many of Samson's exploits. Zorah, Eshtal, Timnah, and Delilah's home were all in that valley, which is going to be in the book of Judges, which I actually haven't read the book of Judges in a year or so. So we might actually read Judges after, when we do a New Testament book next. After that, we'll do Judges. All right. Ekron was near the place where the valley opens up into the plain. Okay. And last part of verse 17 through 18 in chapter 6. This is a formal list with the heading details and summary. Many similar lists have been discovered all over the ancient Near East. In these, the summary always encapsulates the details. The structure suggests that the gold tumors and the heading and details may be the same as the gold mice in the summary. And in 2 Samuel chapter 23, but see also notes in 1 Samuel chapter 6, the summary or namely, the golden mice according to the number of all the cities of the Philistines belong to the 5 lords, i.e., both walled forts and their surroundings unwalled villages. This phraseology was probably chosen to ensure that no part of the Philistines' territory was left out. So the 5 cities with the 5 lords of areas where God was not the God of could be a connection to the 5 tumors and the 5 golden mice statues. And that's right where we're going to leave off. All right. So once again, thank you guys for listening to my podcast. I'm going to be promoting it on Facebook, BitChute, Trovo, YouTube, basically anywhere that anyone wants to listen to any type of podcast. And thank you guys for listening, and God bless.